everyone, and welcome to the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world show made for the fans by a fan. I'm your host, as always, Richard Tiemann, and this is the award-winning fan show and another part of our College Gridiron Showcase mini-series special. Joining me tonight is another very special guest for such a special occasion. She is Kendall Goldberg. Kendall, welcome. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and, you're one of very few females that we've had a chance to talk to, and my understanding from Jose is that there's a reason why he wanted you to be a part of the showcase. So I guess first and foremost would be a quick, what is your title and your role currently in life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the Director of Athletic Training Services for Baylor Scott and White Rehab. And I oversee 200 PRN athletic trainers for events all over Dallas, Fort Worth, and in the Austin area.
Wow, it's quite the title there and quite the responsibility. And I believe Jose said that you were also the head trainer for the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders?
I am the head athletic trainer for the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, as well as the Dallas Cowboys Rhythm and Blues team.
Oh, wow. So what is a day in the life of Kendall Goldberg look like? That's got to be a full schedule.
It is. It's really enjoyable. But most of my time is spent during the day in the office, doing contracts for events, getting people into the doctor, physical therapy. And then after work, I go to my other work and I attend practices with the cheerleaders and the dance team and make sure they're good. And on game day, I get them ready and watch the game. It's really a dream job.
Yeah, I mean, not many people get to have their dream jobs, and for some people, their dream job might not be what another person envisions that dream being. I know people that are, EMTs that are very happy to be an EMT, and for some, they're just like, that doesn't strike me as like a dream job, but, it is to you, whatever, I guess, a day of doing what you love, because if you do what you love, you don't actually work when you're doing something you enjoy. So good for you.
That
good.
Is 100%. Thank you.
That is awesome. So go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself as far as from there to here, what got you into football, College Gridiron Showcase, and all that good stuff.
Well, I am a huge college football fan. Obviously, when you go through athletic training program, you work a lot of football, and I just happen to love it. So I do tend to know a lot about football that people are surprised about. But if you love it and you watch it, you know what's going on. And as an athletic trainer, you have to be prepared for those kind of things. It seems small, but knowing plays and positions and, different defenses and all those setups, it really does help your job to know what your athlete needs to return to play in, and that's what our profession does. So I can have a wide range of, I can take care of a football player, or I can take care of a dancer. They're two different athletes, but to know what they do and how their body moves, that's very important. So that's what my staff does, and we were approached to see if we'd be interested in providing medical care for the College Gridiron Showcase. And as a huge college football fan, it's a no-brainer, really.
It's interesting how 50-50 it is when it comes to people involved with sports that maybe don't know as much about the sport they're involved with. Because, people are still surprised that there are certain people in different professions with sports that know a lot about that sport. And I don't think it has to do anything with gender whatsoever, because my wife, she knows a lot about football. And it's not just because she's my wife and feels that she's like obligated to. It's the fact that, she genuinely enjoys the sport and she wants to be educated on it. And I can't help but laugh at the scene from The Water Boy where Coach Klein brings him on the field for the first time, and he says, didn't you, while you were doing your water boy duties, occasionally watch the game? And he's like,
right?
No, I'm checking the levels and all the gauges. And he's like, oh, okay. And it reminds me of times where when I was in pep band and you had those members of band that were very much a football fan, that it was like this was their free ticket into the game. And then you had the people that could not care any less about the game. They're tuning or they're doing whatever. So, it goes both ways. But yeah, I think people shocked that someone involved with sports somehow knows all about the sport. I feel like that's, a little ridiculous in this day and age.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's sports that, I've worked that I don't feel quite as knowledgeable about. But football's definitely not one of those. So.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of glass ceilings that have been broken over the last several years, especially women's wrestling. I don't know if you follow it all, but Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair have really made names for themselves, and it's been great to watch because they're just as good as the rest. So I'm glad that
absolutely,
along with your profession, that you've taken some time to actually take in the sport and enjoy it. And I'm sorry that people are surprised that more than they feel an athletic train. I feel like that's a profession where you should probably know something about the sport that you're training people.
Absolutely. Otherwise, I don't know what you're paying attention to, like the Waterboy reference, if you're not watching the game and learning what's going on. It could be kind of boring and confusing.
Yeah, it's like a car mechanic that doesn't know the different makes and models. He just understands the engines, right?
Exactly.
Well, CGS is less than a month away. I think we're under the 25-day mark, actually.
We are.
Jose and the rest of the staff, and myself included, just had a conference call last night to go kind of over everything. Every year, Jose aims for the next year, or I guess this upcoming year, to be better than the one before it. And I think that's understandable, very realistic as well, as he continues to grow this and tweak it to make sure that it is what he wants it to be, which is a showcase and not so much a show. And I don't know how familiar you are with the other types of games like the East and West and the All-American, but I had a great chat with Willie Pyle, who's the defensive backs coach down there, and he's like, it's not that it does it better than anybody else as far as what it is. It just found a way to do what they do differently. And what are your thoughts on CGS? I'll let you take it from here. Like, how did you and Jose meet, and what brought you to now?
So, funny story, he found me on LinkedIn.
It's a great place. Great place.
That is a great place to meet. And I'm very proud that our outreach program at Baylor Scott and Light Rehab has grown to be one of the premier in Dallas-Fort Worth. And I think talking to Jose, it's like you said, they want this showcase to be a premier showcase. Well, I think he thought, premier medical care as well. And the fact that he acknowledges that, and Jose's married to an athletic trainer as well, so he knows what we do and the value in that. And like any of our contracts or sponsorships or anything we're involved in, we want to bring the best to the best. And that's kind of where it got started. And to be able to, for my staff and myself to be a part of this is a great honor for us. Again, like we've been discussing college football, we're all big fans. So to be able to be a part of that and get to take care of these athletes and give them, a little assurance that while you're here, we're going to take care of you because we know you got a future. And so we're going to make sure you get out of this as safe and as sound so you can move on to the next level.
So it was interesting. Last year, I had a conversation with one of the sideline trainers, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because I've talked to a few people about it, and some of them, for the most part, agree. Some of them think that, I don't know, maybe not so much, but I'm a 49ers fan, and last year, our quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, tore his ACL and was sidelined for the season. And it seemed like the year before and that year, there had been a lot of ACL MCL injuries. And I don't know if this is because there's so much media out there now in the form of both social media and just people that are like retweeting or sharing the same thing that it seems like more. So I asked her, I said, call me crazy, but does it feel like there's more ACL, MCL, just non-contact injuries happening? And she's like, yeah, there are. And I said, well, why is that? She's like, well, we live in a world where today's athletes can run faster, jump higher, and do amazing things. Records are being broken all over the place. But yet those muscles that they work out to make them run faster and jump higher, on the flip side, they also need to work out and stretch the muscles that are going to be receiving the impact of those. So in other words, if you can jump that much higher, you got to work on the muscles that are bracing for the impact when you come back down. If you can run faster, you got to work the muscles that are going to slow you down, and the athletes are not. And she said that's partly on the athlete and partly on the athletic trainer for the team to make sure that the guys are doing both ends of things, and she believed that they weren't. So I wanted to get your thoughts as a trainer for multiple things, both athletes and cheerleaders and things like that. What's your take on non-contact injuries?
Yeah, it's interesting because I always find that I personally think that it's about an average, on how many occur in each sport. Women's soccer is actually the highest for ACL tears, and that has a lot to do with quad strength to hamstring. So yeah, she was really correct on the muscle imbalance. And I think with football players, and I know with my dancers, is people think, oh, well, they're very fit, they're ripped, they got 6-pack, 8-pack, but core strength and core, function is more than just your abs and how fabulous they look. So yeah, she's right. There's people focus on quad strength and hamstrings, but they don't think about back and muscles in the front that are the center of gravity. So athletes will tend to focus on one body, part or the other, and they forget about what holds you together, which is your core. And so I know a lot of athletic trainers who are starting to really focus on that functional movement and core strength ability. And there's so many new technology. We have new technology in our PT clinics that you can actually put sensors on athletes' bodies and be able to have them do those moves and see where those not disabilities, but where their weaknesses are, and that puts them more at risk for injury. So I think the science of, physical therapy and athletic training is just grown exponentially and has prevented a lot of injuries. And I think athletes just think, oh, I need to get in the weight room. Yes, but you also need to be able to move correctly in that weight room. So I feel like when I worked in a high school, it was the year we had a theme for injuries. One year it'd be ACLs, one it would be Achilles. So it seems like a lot, but when you look at the widespread ratio of injuries, it's pretty on average.
Wow.
Those athletes are just in the spotlight.
Gotcha. And that makes a lot of sense. Like I said, with today's media and the way it travels and how fast it travels, it probably seemed like it was a lot bigger of a deal than it actually was. But there's a wrestler, AJ Styles, who's been wrestling for years. He's actually in his 40s now, and there was an interview done with him where they asked, what do you do to stay in shape? And he said, I don't really lift anymore. I feel like my body reached kind of its physical peak a couple of years ago, so now I just work on stretching and making sure that what I have stays the way that it is. Is that something is that a real thing amongst athletes?
It really is. Yeah, it really is. Functional movement, and athletes are learning more, and we focus a lot on it, on not just flexibility, because I'm sure you've seen the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, they're very flexible, but being able to control movement. And any athlete in any sport, if they lack the ability to control their movement, even if they are hypermobile, it puts them more at risk for injury. So athletes are really working on functional movement and mobility, but also on recovery. Recovery is a huge thing right now that people are working on in athletic training and strength and conditioning, because we forget how to recover after we do all the magnificent, abilities that they have.
Gotcha. Well, I am very curious to see, what else happens in the world of athletics and sports with, constant evolution of technology and the way that people train their bodies and get them in tone. One thing I did want to ask, and I want to start this by saying I don't mean to say or imply that cheerleaders are not athletes. The question I want to ask is who is more difficult to work with, athletes or cheerleaders?
Oh, definitely your regular athletes. My dancers, cheerleaders, they are the most magnificent people, sweetest human beings. And the nice thing
Wow.
about them, because they are elite athletes and people don't realize that until you work with them, they actually do what I ask them to. you know, it's all good when you listen to your athletic trainer. So they have been the most fantastic group of people, humans, athletes that I've ever worked with, and I'm really, really blessed to have worked with them. But yeah, it does help when you get these athletes who know what's at stake and know their bodies, but they also listen to their athletic trainer, their doctor, their physical therapist. So I'm very loyal to my athletes and who are cheerleaders and dancers, and I just appreciate the opportunity that I have to work with them. And I've worked with different sports over the years, and my former athletes are probably going to hate this, but these have been my favorite. I think performing arts, and not just because of who they are and their name, but because who they are as people. It really is really an honor.
I think I could see that. I was a little surprised. I thought maybe it'd be a bit more of a toss up, but you're like, no, athletes. Like the girls do what I ask them to do, and that's
Yes.
I think that's probably more than half the battle.
It really is.
So CGS, you're going to have a lot of college seniors, very young, very impressionable athletes, right? All with a dream, all with a goal. They're hungry. That's why they're there. You've worked around athletes, cheerleaders, different kinds of mental types, I guess would be the right word.
Yeah.
And of course, the world today, certain places, most all of them, can't put a specific image on people anymore. Like, you must weigh this much, you must look this way. But, you can't control what goes on behind closed doors. So for today's athlete, like a college senior football player, for example, how hard is it as an athletic trainer to keep them out of their own head when it comes to trying to cut corners and stuff like that?
Right. Yeah. It's all about relationships and getting to know your athletes. I still have contact with most of mine. I don't know if you've heard of Jarrett Stidham with the Patriots. He's Brady's backup, but I took care of him in high school. And knowing their personalities and being that safe place for them to express their, feelings, what's going on in their lives, what's going on with their body, that connection between athletic trainer and athlete, I don't think you can match it anywhere. And that's the most important thing is giving them a place to actually express, what's going on. And we're athlete trainers, we're problem solvers, we're psychiatrists, we're moms, we're, janitors sometimes. We do it all. So I think it's really important to consider mental health in the athlete and knowing that who they are as a person versus who they are and what they can do on the court or the field.
Yeah, I think it's important for a lot of these athletes to, not try too hard. I mean, I know that they're already kind of on the other side of things because that's why they're at this showcase. They're not at an Alabama or an LSU or a Michigan. I mean, maybe they are, but these are guys that are looking for an opportunity, second look, second chance, maybe their first chance. There was a couple of guys I spent talking to and getting to know at last year's CGS that they had missed out on playing some very important games due to injury, and they didn't want it to end that way. And I know that that's usually cause for guys to cut a lot of corners and to expedite the process on recovery. Your experience as a trainer, we see these guys that will have these injuries that they give a timetable and all of a sudden they're beating that timetable. Is that a real thing, or is that something that you would advise against? And where is that coming from as far as how do you, this isn't, Google Maps estimated time and you go 5 miles an hour more and beat it. This is a human body.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people forget, like you think of, I always think of RG3 and then Adrian Peterson or Saquon Barkley, who came back from a high ankle sprain really, really fast. It is individualized. We really try to set expectations in rehabilitation, but logical ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it is exciting when they do progress, but if you get them too hyped about how fast they're going, the setbacks are bigger setbacks than they would be if you said, okay, you're on pace right now, you had a minor setback. They become major setbacks if you give them too high of expectations of, oh, well, he got back. You can't compare each other. So that's why with injuries, ACL, Achilles, we try to set those guidelines of what an average person will do. And then sometimes they're not average people, so they'll do a little better.
It's crazy to see the way athletes are nowadays. You think about the Olympics and just football, baseball, basketball, and all these records that have started to be broken recently. Some that we thought never would be broken. And it's like, it's crazy what the human body is capable of, and more importantly, what the human spirit is capable of. Because these guys have to not just feel like they can do it, they have to want to do it. And I'm sure as a trainer, the mental hurdles. When a player suffers a serious injury, what do you guys do as trainers to help them mentally get over those humps?
I know personally when I have an athlete who has a major injury, I try to get them to realize the long-term things, again, it goes back to setbacks, but a lot, and you find it in high school kids, especially, or middle school, if they have, the hot topic, a concussion, and they want to get back fast, you just kind of have to remind them, we always say you only have one brain and you might want to use it later. So I use a lot of humor in mine to try to loosen them up depending on their personality, but just reminding them of the big picture of life. And I think that's really hard for athletes these days because of the expectations, and the, spotlight on athletes, especially the elite ones, they forget about what do you do after you're done playing football, you're done swimming, kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, there is more to life than football, and a lot of these guys haven't really given a second thought about life after football. They're just so busy trying to get to football professionally, and I don't, knock them for doing that or having that mindset at all. I just know that one of the best things about CGS are the seminars that are provided talking about, financially what you're in store for as an athlete. Should you be drafted? Should you be a free agent? Where your dollar goes further? Is it Green Bay? Is it Miami? Is it LA? And of course, just what it means to be drafted and to play at a professional level, between the fees, taxes, and then of course paying your agent. And I think that there's a lot of guys that go into this event uneducated and come out with just a world of knowledge that they did not know before. And it's great to have opportunities like that. And I believe you are one of the special guests for this year's CGS. Is that correct?
I don't know. I will be around for sure. I told Jose that I will be working it because it's a great opportunity, and that's the good thing about being the boss is you kind of get to pick the events that you want to work, and this is a special one. And Jose has been amazing, and he really had put so much heart into this event, and that just makes me want to put all of my heart in it as well.
Okay. I didn't know if you were planning on speaking at any of the seminars or anything like that, as far as, taking care of your body and athletic training 101 or whatever you would call it. So I wasn't sure. I know that he has several people that are going to be there and be special guests. I just wasn't sure if you were one of them. It's been a little chaotic around here lately. But regardless, the event will be great and even better to have you there. So I'm very excited for it. I know that for me, the pressure's on. This will be the first year that they've had a media day, which I'm running, coordinating, and hosting. So that's awesome. Yeah, that's a lot on my plate right now.
Feel ya.
So I don't know who has the better end of the stick here, me or you. You've got to deal with the athletes and their well-being. I have to worry about making sure that the world doesn't, laugh at us and that we don't embarrass ourselves.
I completely understand that. I've ended up on the DCC making the team show, and I did not plan to. So I understand I understand the pressure for sure.
Yeah, real quick on that, obviously the Dallas Cowboys probably receive some of the most media attention than any team out there, any league. And I mean, this is including New York and LA teams. Dallas Cowboys, not just for their football players, but also, yes, they're cheerleaders, and there is the show. How much pressure does that put on you as a trainer, knowing that at any moment there could be a camera around you or in your face, and that these are the women that it's like the whole world watches come Sunday kickoff?
Yeah, we're definitely behind the scenes people, and I did not really put much thought into it. I usually try to stay, away from any cameras. But when something goes down, I just go into, athletic trainer mode. Got to take care of my girls. I just ask CMT that they don't film me running, because I'm not a pretty runner. But other than that, yeah, we try to stay behind the scenes. But as it did not happen that way, and my mom's proud, and so that's all that matters. Is she was very proud of my moment.
Oh, hey, there you go. That's great to know. And the last thing here I wanted to ask you was, obviously a lot of people that are going to CGS are going there voluntarily. And whether you are or not, it doesn't make a huge difference to me or anyone listening. It's more about what sold you on CGS. Why do you feel it's an important event?
Jose, really, the way he speaks about the event and his passion for it, and giving these college athletes an experience that they definitely deserve, and making sure that everything is in place, because I definitely know the work that goes into it. We just had the Dallas Marathon yesterday, so I know about planning and making sure everyone has a great experience. And he just kind of did it. And then all you have to tell me is college football, and I'm in.
It's that simple, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, hey, I can't thank you enough for your time for another one of these mini-series specials. It's been great to get to know you, and I look forward to talking more with you. I'm sure there's plenty that we can talk more about. We could probably do a whole mini-series just about your experiences in the sport.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. She is Kendall Goldberg, and she is a woman of many talents, and she is the athletic trainer for the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, who you can catch on Sunday on Fox, usually. All right. Thank you, Kendall. You have a great rest of your night.
Thank you so much. You too.